Hey, this is Dan Olds, and this is going to be another Student Cluster Competition webcast. And today we've got a special guest. We have Dr. Gerry McCartney, who is Vice President for IT, the System CIO, and a Professor of Information Technology at Purdue University. Purdue, of course, is going to be very familiar to all of you hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people who are slavishly following student cluster competition events and news. Hello, Doctor. How are you today?
Very well, thanks. Great to be here.
And thank you for talking. I really appreciate you taking the time.
You're quite welcome.
Purdue, first of all, for those people listening that don't know, Purdue was one of the, I guess, founding institutions of this competition. They were at the very first, participated at the very first competition back in 2007, when this was regarded as some sort of strange animal by the rest of the supercomputing community. Were you involved in that, Gerry?
Yes, absolutely. You could immediately see the opportunities for our students participating in a kind of a competitive environment, where they're tested to perform at their highest levels. We've participated in 9 events, 9 competitions, in fact, since 2007. Most of them at SC, but a couple of them at the international meetings as well. And we're glad to do it.
What was it like when you first heard about this competition? Did you have to be sold on it, or were you just immediately in when you found out about it?
No, I think the opportunity to, this is something that's very appealing to our students, is the idea to have to do something practical in a measured way against other people who are also trying hard. It's a very effective team building and learning exercise, and it gives the students a lot of the skills that are frankly otherwise hard to duplicate in a classroom environment. But in a very practical way, what happens when this thing doesn't work? You start something, you build a machine, you're given a new challenge by the competition organizers, doesn't come out the way you thought it was going to come out. How do you deal with that right here on the fly right now? That's a great kind of a learning moment for a lot of our students.
And your students have traveled from, first of all, to all the SC locations in the U.S., and that's Austin and Portland, New Orleans, Seattle. But they've also traveled to Germany for the ISC competitions, and this last year to China.
That's exactly correct, yeah. We feel we want to make this commitment to our students. They enjoy it. We enjoy having them represent us. The departments where our students feel good about it, and then we get a little bit of help from the vendors as well. So between all of those contributions, this just turns out to be a great experience for our students.
And actually, you bring up a good point with the support from sponsors and vendors. One of the things that I'm trying to do is to get more institutions to participate in these competitions, even have their own regional competitions. One of the things I hear, though, back from them is they think it would be difficult to get support from vendors. That the schools just don't have the resources themselves to pull this off. What's been your experience?
Well, that hasn't been our experience. So I have found that not only are the deans of the schools willing to contribute, but as I say, the vendors are willing to contribute. We have great relationships with 3 or 4 vendors, all of whom help make the thing attainable, and then I throw some money in it as well. I think you have to think of this as part of the educational experience, just like we would help with study abroad or other forms of external learning. This is a very practical form of that learning experience. So, in fact, we haven't had trouble finding support for this kind of activity.
And that would be my experience from talking to vendors, is they're more than happy to get involved as long as they're brought in early enough to where they can budget things themselves and move money
Right.
around from bucket to bucket.
Yeah.
But they see this as a good opportunity to get closer to the institution, to get closer to the students, and also to get their name out there.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's been a great, what do I want to say? It's been a great way for them to participate and get closer to a lot of times the kids that are going to be working for them at some
Yeah.
point. And actually, that brings up another point. Um, what what's been the impact on the students that have gone through the program with Purdue?
Well, we've had about 30 students go through these various competitions. As I say, we've hired 4 of them ourselves directly into our HPC staff, and 7 others have pursued HPC as a career option. So, I think that's a pretty good hit rate. This isn't a subject particularly people come to university to, they don't come to be an HPC engineer, but it is an area where the country is pretty short of people with those very particular talents.
Yes.
And so, we're taking students from multiple disciplines: computer science, electrical computer engineering, other domain sciences, chemistry, atmospheric, aero engineering, technology students. They've come often to do other things. So I think, 33% hit rate is actually pretty high. And, that's kind of affirmation of this as a strategy for encouraging people to think of this as a career. And frankly, the vendors also can see the advantage that they get a look at students who they mightn't otherwise get a look at.
Absolutely. And like you said before, the demand for students that have this sort of training is insatiable now and still growing. What with the advent of big data and just the vast array of things that we can do technically these days, we have to have people that can actually do it.
Right. That's exactly right.
And I think that your 33% hit rate, I think, is kind of might be understating it, because some of the guys that I know that were on the Purdue teams, if you're talking about going strictly into HPC IT management, sure, but but a lot of
Right.
these kids went into research where
That's
they're still
exactly
using
right.
those same
See, yeah.
skills.
Yes, that's exactly right, because now they're exposed to them. Now they understand this capability in a way perhaps they wouldn't have understood it, where they just see it as a utility.
Yeah.
I don't know who makes the electricity. I just plug in and it works. These folks have actually, done the work needed to see what it means to offer a new application, or what it means to stand up a machine and get it to do something in short order. So it's a great experience from that perspective. You're
And how to
exactly right.
how to get more out of the machines that they have. It's that tuning and configuring skill that really
Right.
comes in handy.
Yes.
So I believe that Purdue is also at the cutting edge when it comes to using your participation in these competitions to enrich and actually build new classes, right? In the curriculum?
Right. That's exactly right. One of the things we've noticed, for example, is that the number of classes, or sponsored research projects we have, and their value as a percentage of all our funded research, continues to go up. That we're now at about a third of all our research expenditures are around projects using high-performance computing. And I don't think we're unusual in that regard. We are, to
No.
be sure, engineering-dominated, but for people with a profile like ours, that number would be typical. And that's grown, in absolute dollars, but also, more importantly, in relative size, because even 10 or 15 years ago, that number would have been more like 10%. So 10% of and now it's 30% of a much bigger number. So it's grown dramatically. And
Wow.
so the ability to have people around who understand how to provision that service it would be like everybody needs a radio telescope, but nobody knows how to operate a radio telescope. You need one for research. Well, we're producing folks that can manage and use and provision high-performance computing services. And of course, this isn't just a university thing. This is widely used, for example, in energy exploration.
Sure.
And banks, big banks, investment banks.
Even retail stores.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Logistics. It's everywhere. It's harder to find an industry or a segment where this isn't having an impact.
Right.
And one of the really interesting things about Purdue is that you've taken the stuff that comes out of a competition or goes into a competition, for instance, and have used that in the classroom. I know that in reading the applications from your teams over the years, that, for instance, if one of the upcoming applications is going to be, say, WARF for weather forecasting,
Yes.
that your students are going out and bringing in topic matter experts to teach them about that application, how it works, and how to make it run.
Yes, and that's exactly correct, because we are seeing this capability extended to a wide range of disciplines now, not just the archetypal, computational disciplines, as you would expect, the sciences and the engineering disciplines, but we see this in now almost every aspect of endeavor that uses any kind of numerical data.
And I remember back in 2010, one of the most interesting applications was a password cracking application. And I think didn't Purdue actually bring in a subfamily from the Russian mafia to help them out with that, or not?
I don't remember that narrative. I have to say.
I'm actually just making that up.
Good.
Just making that up on the fly. Okay.
Some things aren't surprising anymore, but there you go.
Just made that one up on the fly. But one thing that's really interesting this year is that you guys are teaming up with one of your sister universities in Columbia. Tell me about that.
Yeah, AFET Purdue University has a multi-year relationship, maybe going back the last 4 or 5 years, meaningfully, with the country of Colombia, now the second largest economy in South America. We were pleased and happy to be early adventurers in that space. And AFET is an institution that we've had the longest relationship with. In fact, we have, my organization's provided them with high-performance computing services before now, and is creating a cadre of students and employee staff in their country that can also run and provision high-performance computing services. And this year, for the first time, our SC14 team is going to be comprised of Purdue and AFET students. So that's actually great at a number of levels. We're very excited by the opportunities here, mutual learning, and we'll see how that goes. But just like everything else, if the team functions well and it's a great learning experience for our students, then we'll have considered it very good value for our investment.
Absolutely. And, I make a big deal about the winning and losing and all of that because I'm trying to make this sort of like college football. I want to generate more interest.
Right.
But that's not the point. And it really doesn't matter. What matters is going through that 9-month process or so and learning everything it takes to get in and compete successfully in these competitions, which is something Purdue's always done.
Right. That's exactly right.
And you're one of the teams that I can remember since following this. I started around 2009, 2010, that Purdue's always been there and has never seemed to suffer some of the problems that other teams can suffer with, dead equipment, just sort of floundering. So it's been a very solid, steady team.
Right.
Very
All
good
right.
stuff. Well, let me put you on the spot as we close out here.
Sure.
One of the things that was sort of kicked around among the coaches at a couple of the last cluster competitions is what about having an institution who really knows what they're doing host, for instance, a regional competition, maybe along the lines of the Big 10, Big 12, something like that, and use that to put together an all-star team that could get into a cluster competition.
I mean, that's possible, but that seems to be kind of a stunt to me. I mean, when we're trying to, I don't want, using it with student athletes is actually a good example of where competition can actually defeat the original purpose of the activity.
Mm-hmm.
And I want this to be a learning experience a competitive learning experience for the students. So students have to compete to get into our teams, and then our team, or into our team, and then our team obviously competes against other institutions' teams. But I'm not going to either do more of it or do less of it, depending on whether we win or not, as opposed to whether we perform well. And by performing well, do we appear competent? Are we organized? Are our students well prepared? And that, to me, and anything that would kind of defeat that, you see, I would be kind of not in favor of,
What I'm trying to do, and maybe it's better working with institutions that haven't done this before, but I want to get more schools involved, and particularly out where I am on the West Coast. We've never had a school from, for instance, the Northwest compete in a cluster competition.
Sure.
And that would be something that maybe they could start and have a sort of an informal internal competition among a number of schools, and then forward a champion onto one of the major competitions.
Yeah.
But sort of a get your feet wet sort of thing.
They've got to want to do this, though,
Yes.
So.
And I think the students do, and I think that the faculty does once they hear about it. But I think that it's convincing administrators, although I haven't heard of any case where anyone who's heard about it has just said out of hand, this isn't for us.
Right.
It seems like it's been universally well regarded as a great experience, and certainly it is in the case of Purdue.
Yes, that's absolutely the case.
Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us. Really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
And everybody listening, be sure and stay tuned for updates on the competition. We're going to break down the game of each of the teams and talk you through and show you through video what happens at the competition itself. Thanks again for listening.